The 800-meter run, my favorite distance in track and field, and luckily the one I'm best at. My senior season marked the 5th year that I've been racing this event, and my times and tactics have changed dramatically. As an incoming freshman to the University of Washington, with these recruitment and walk-on standards, I'll be training and racing unattached in Seattle for my entire freshman year, with the goal of running a 150 and getting recruited to the UW by my sophomore year. Before we begin that adventure, I'd like to recap everything I learned since I began this journey. It begins in 7th grade track, where I was just discovering my love of running. I only ran one 800 in my entire 7th grade season, which made it all the more meaningful. I ran a 2:33, and unknowingly began one of my greatest projects ever. So, we'll begin this video with my first 800-meter PR, a 2:33. In 8th grade, during COVID season, I spent most of my free time at the track. I've mentioned before how my training sucked, but I'll say it again. It sucked. I ran 10 miles a week, didn't stretch, and spent most of my time making cringy YouTube videos. However, if I had the chance to do it over again, I wouldn't change a thing, because that year I became absolutely obsessed with track, and obsession is exactly what I needed if I was to succeed. With the start of 9th grade, I joined the track team at my local high school. I met my track coach and finally started receiving some proper training. Little did I know that with her guidance and my mindset, we'd move up 130 spots in the state rankings over the next 4 years, and finish in the top 10 all-time 800s in school history. But that was a long way away. Coming in with a 2:19 personal best, I wasn't even thinking of the state championship. Initially, I didn't even consider the 800 as a strong suit of mine. Since COVID life was still very much at large in 2021, my freshman year had much less races, and I competed in the 800 only once that season. I was placed in the second heat at a league meet, which served as quite a blow to my 15-year-old ego, so I was determined to prove that I should have been in the fast heat. A bit of foreshadowing, this would prove to be a trend in future 800s. I led this 800 for 90% of the race, with a much-needed surge from my teammate Mitchell at 300 to go. Finishing in 2:12, I was ecstatic to have broken 2:15. I truly thought I was that guy, but I was in for a rude awakening in sophomore year.
You're not that guy, pal. Trust me. You're not that guy.
Though I did improve my time, I found myself ranking lower than I had hoped. I ran 2:10, 2:09, and 2:07, but was feeling slow, both in the 800 and in the mile. I couldn't even win the league meets and was always near the back at invitationals. In freshman year, my 800 was ranked 135th in the state, and in sophomore year, I ranked 115th. It was not where I wanted to be. Off of word of mouth and basic progressions I'd seen from other athletes, I was estimated to run around a 2:03 800 by the end of senior year. Then, after an even more disappointing season in cross country, I had had enough. Progress was not going to be gifted to me just because I was growing older. I realized if I wanted to succeed, I'd need to force it to happen myself. Like I mentioned in my mile progression video, calisthenics was my way of reaching higher athleticism and a stronger mentality. I put on 10 pounds of muscle to reach 150, dedicated my entire winter to training, and set my sights on breaking the barriers I had set myself. 2:03 in senior year was not going to be my reality. At the very first track meet in junior year, I stepped up to the line knowing that 2:07 personal best was going to get blown out of the water. A 6-second PR. With splits of 60-61, I knew I had put in the work that would lead to change. 2:03? Hell no, it was time to break 2. A week later, at the Mount Tahoma 800-meter Invitational, I ran 1:59, securing a spot in the 800-meter League Championship. After missing out on what would have been my first track state championship, I was pretty bummed after my season ended like this. I promised myself I would never, ever feel the feeling of falling short of my potential again. I needed to make myself into an athlete that no one could underestimate. From sophomore year to junior year, I moved up from 115th to 21st place in the state. That was the jump I needed, but I wasn't done yet. Entering senior year, I wanted to go top 8. Hopefully, I could make it to the 800 state final too, and get myself a beautiful championship medal. Something I never had. I know I said I trained hard before junior year, but during the winter before senior year, I went all in. On everything. To the point where my friends grew annoyed I wasn't spending time with them. Understandably so. I didn't hang out anymore and didn't look for free time. I began taking calisthenics even more seriously, and took on Muay Thai too. All I did was study, train, and sleep 8 hours or more. And I'll be honest, it's been the best time of my life. Before my senior track season started, I wanted to prove to myself that what I had once thought was impossible, such as being a state finalist in the 4A division, was indeed possible. So the first thing I did was do 1,020 pull-ups in 3.5 hours, doing 5 a minute just like David Goggins did. A few months later, I broke my school record for most consecutive pull-ups by hitting 37. Now it was time to apply it to running. The first 3 800s I ran, I couldn't even break 2 minutes. I almost gave in to the fact that my senior season might turn out to be a catastrophic fail, that maybe I had gone too far with the muscle gain and the pull-ups, but I remembered my own promise last year to never fall short of my potential again. I had to see it through, no matter how many failures I had. Soon enough, I had my final failure, and the ball began rolling. The race I was most nervous for was the 800-meter state prelims. 16 boys would enter, and only 8 would make it through. I was lucky enough to be in a less tactical heat and made it to the final with a 1:57.3, feeling relaxed and ready for the final the following day. I had already run the 7th fastest timer in the state, a mark I was ecstatic with. Even though I felt good going into the final, I had raced both the 800 and the 4x4 prelims the 2 days before, so I knew my legs would be affected by that. Despite being seeded 6th by PR in the final, I entered the race the only way I could, with the intention of winning it. The quality may be blurry, but here's the full video of my first and last track state final. I got out hard, with high hopes for the next 200. However, I got boxed out of nowhere and found myself in the back after taking just one step to avoid getting tripped up. After talking about it with my coach later, we figured out it would have been smartest to stay on the outside a bit longer before cutting in, even if that gets me a tad more distance to run. Here I picked it up again, but it only slowed down immediately after. Coming through 458 or so, everyone seemed to wake up and we began hitting the gas. At 300 to go, I felt like I reached my top speed, making me wish I started the surge at 400 instead. As I began to hit my final kick, there was some bustling up ahead, which will come up in a second here, but somehow no one got disqualified. There we go. Then, as I left it all out on the track with 100 to go, amidst lots of things happening that I did not understand in the moment, I eventually crossed the line in 5th. I felt what may just be the most rewarding feeling of accomplishment that I ever received in my life. That moment was somehow caught on film, too. It was the moment I thought to myself, I did it. I got my state medal. I believed in myself all season, and after 5 years of work, it paid off. Of course, that moment only lasted for a minute, because soon after I thought to myself, well, time to train for college track. So, that brings me to the end of my 800-meter story, which in truth is just the beginning. I know that sounds cliche, but it is also true. I'll end with a chart showing my improvement over the 4 years. And I'll also leave you with a few more lessons that I've learned on running the 800. Run your long runs hard. I found that the last numbing mile of a long run is a lot like the last 200 of an 8. The better I did on those long runs, the better I did in the 8. Third, get out hard the first 150. Just sprint it. The first 4 or 5 races of my senior year were not what I wanted because I just focused on opening like you would in a mile. Don't do that. You need to position strong and you do not want to end up in the back. Fourth, something I only learned in my last couple of months of high school, don't think about the time, think about the place. If you position properly, match the moves, and kick hard at the end, there's a very low chance you won't get what you want. The race where I focused on time least, which was at league championships, is the same race where I set my high school PR of 155. Fifth, use the straights. Don't make all your moves on the curve, and you should leave no straight unused. Lastly, and most importantly, if you find yourself working as hard as you can and still don't see any results, keep working. It's about the person you become, not the result. I find that I'm much prouder that I stayed confident in myself in the face of failure than the fact that I made it to state. The memories will stay with me much longer than the medal will. Well, that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video and maybe even took something that will help you in a future 800. So thank you to everyone who supported, filmed, and cheered on me these past 5 years.